Damn, I really did keep y'all waiting on this one. Welcome, folks. At long last, I'm sorry for the wait. I have my updated premium Dimension Police list. So, if you saw, I think at the beginning of August, I posted a new premium Dimension Police list that used. Wow, why is my Dailiner? There we go. They used a new tool that is Geomagglass, and so this is our brand new stride for Dimension Police. But we have received new cards since then. You know, a whole new booster set, Silverdust Blaze that contains support for Dimension Police, and of course, there's quite a few new toys for us to play with. And so I didn't have too much time to playtest, so I only really got to sit down a couple of weeks ago, and over those couple of weeks, just like play a few games against different friends. But didn't really have too much time to playtest, I would have to say. And so because of that, you know, I put as much time as I could, and this is sort of the list that I have come to a conclusion with. And you'll notice that there's quite a few cards swapped out that I'm currently still testing, but the testing results have shown good positive outcomes, and therefore that's what I'm reporting. So as always, we're going to take a look at the main deck first. And also, if you want to get more information, I still recommend watching my old one, the one that I posted in August, because I think there might be some points I gloss over in today's video that you can always brush up on the video from August. So let's just look through the deck list. So of course, our main man is Dailiner still. So of course, this guy puts in a lot of work. Dailiner, very powerful, grade 3. I've actually playtested with one of my Discord mods, Mega PSK, and pretty funnily enough, we had some games where I would go first and just ride this up, where, you know, the Protect deck doesn't have time to ride into their grade 3 and get their Protect marker yet, and just swing with the Force 2 and like lots of power, and they just die. So Dailiner is great because his second skill lets him search top 7 for a normal unit. If it's a grade 3, he gets plus 20k power and a crit. And then of course the main reason why we run him is the first skill, that all your grade 3 units get plus 10,000 shield. So they don't get power, but they get shield, so you can guard with your grade 3s, and they're about as much as a grade 1. With just him, that is. But of course, you know, that as you know, that is certainly gonna change. Now, more grade 3s that you guys are familiar with. We have the 4 Diearms. So Diearms is literally, you know, premium Dimension Police's best friend. So he has 2 skills. First, on Vanguard Circle, he gets plus 5k for every damage you have, so he's not a bad ride target per se, you know, just to get that force marker. And then his second skill is, at the end of the battle, he attacked on Rearguard Circle if your Vanguard's power is 35k or greater, which is pretty easy for this deck to hit. You may count +1 and put him into your soul, and your Vanguard gets plus 10k power and drive +1. So this isn't once per turn, so if you swing with 2 of them and then put them both in the soul, and give your Vanguard 2 drive checks, he will have 2 more drive checks. So of course we have 2 restanding strides that can abuse that pretty well. So that's of course the same from the last video. But here's where things start to change. What I've decided to put in, and I've been very happy with, is 4 copies of Diearms. So why 4 copies? Well, in Premium, there's actually quite a few decks that can sustain a 10-card hand pretty well. You know, it's a Dark Irregulars, Shadow Paladin, Oracle Think Tank. You know, there's quite a few of these more prominent clans that can definitely sustain that big hand quite well. And the very nice thing about Diearm that I didn't notice at first, but only when I put him in the deck and I started playing him in Premium, I was like, hold on, his when play skill isn't from hand. Which means when Geomagglass calls him from the top 7, his skill procs. Which means that mid-battle, you can actually swing with your other rears, then swing with Vanguard, call this and something else to the front row rears, and your front row gets plus 30k mid-battle. That is big in my opinion. So I think that's quite good. Definitely this is a meta call. So I think because in the current meta there's still quite a few decks that can get away with big hands, it's definitely pretty good for that reason. And usually your first 2 rear swings on that turn with you know, Geomagglass are pretty small. So you can either swing at rears, or you can like just swing for small numbers. They might even take those, because when playing against Dimension Police in Premium, they almost always have to guard the Vanguard attack because it's so powerful and so many crits. So usually if you swing with small rears at them, they're more likely to take those, because in their minds, they're thinking, if I want Counterblast this game, I have to let those rear guards pass. So therefore, they're not going to actually drop cards from hand until the Vanguard swing. And therefore, mid-battle, this comes in before the guard timing, and therefore, because they haven't guarded yet that turn optimally, you will still be able to proc this because their hand is usually big enough. So I'm playing 4 copies because I want to see him from my top 7, and honestly, drawing him whenever is fine because he's going to be a fat shield if anything. So I think this is a better slot than Daiusha right now, because Daiusha was just an alternative grade 3, and it was pretty fun, but this really has some great use in Premium in my opinion. So I really like this a lot, so honestly, I'm a huge fan. Then, moving on to grade 2, sadly that's all the grade 3s we play. There is the very grade 3 heavy build that WCC Kai is playing, but I prefer these ones. So, Dragon, I'd say this is a Dimension Play staple, you know, gives power to your Vanguard, gets power on its own, so it's very good for that reason, helps to overrun your opponent quite well, and doesn't cost any combos to do anything. Here's the other new card I have been running and very happy with, which is the Die Dumper. So, Die Dumper has 2 skills. First, he has Dailiner skills. So all your grade 3 units get shield plus 10k, so you can basically have Dailiner ready 1 turn earlier if you need to, you know, play a bit of a defensive game against some decks. I haven't actually tested against Murakumo, but in theory this should come in pretty handy, like even if they ride up against you and like start doing shenanigans because you gave them a counterblast or something, but just in general against like more aggressive matchups, this is pretty nice. But honestly, the main reason why I run him as well is that second skill, which is when he attacks, you can give him plus 10k, but then you have to retire him after that battle. So this is pretty great on the Geomagglass turn because you can swing this for 20 and then this for 20. They retire themselves, and then swing Vanguard. Your Vanguard calls 2 new units. Now normally you want to call to your 2 front rows anyway with the Geomagglass, so that way you're not minusing, and you get more power out of your attacks, so I think that's pretty good. So of course you can commit boosters with those attacks too, because Geomagglass does buff up your grade 3s, which you will optimally be calling. So I quite like this. Yeah, I've been testing it, and I'm honestly very happy with it. And when this card was introduced, I was kind of like, yeah, this will fit in well in Premium. I'm still running my 1 die ballast. Sometimes your opponent gives you more counterbots than you need, and so you can get away with using it, so that's all. Then, moving forward, we have the grade 1s. Again, I'd say Dimension Play staple, the Die Brave. So just like Die Dragon, I would say this is just, you know, extra power in Vanguard, and also the on-hit to put him in the soul and draw a card. You know, it's just good. It's good for early game especially, because now on turn 2 our opponent will usually take the Vanguard swing, so we lose that turn 2 pressure we had with the Die Heart. So I did like that a lot. I might go back to that still at some point, but I wanted to test new things, and you know, that's kind of the whole point of making a new build, right? So, you know, we're trying out some new things. Then our final grade 1 is also a new one that I've been enjoying quite a lot, or not final, almost final, which is the Die Jacker. So Die Jacker has a pretty cool skill. At the end of his battle that he attacked or boosted, you can retire him to give your Vanguard +1 crit. So the timing is a little bit awkward because you cannot really boost Vanguard with it, because then, you know, it'll be too late, or like even if it's an Excalibur, like you'll only give him the extra crit on the restand. So sometimes you have to swing him empty into just like something that won't hit, or you have to just swing, you know, for example, you know, with him and just like they both retire themselves, and then that way you have a whole column to call stuff to with the Geomagglass if you know, just like want to do that kind of play. So it's pretty good. The only problem is that because you have so many self-retiring rearguards that can make your Atlantis Dolphin turn a little bit, or G-Guard turn a little bit awkward, so keep that in mind. But this card is nice because you can get an extra crit to our Excalibur as well as to our Stark, so without paying counterblast. That was the thing, is that we're still running Laurel, so we're gonna get to that soon, but I basically run Laurel because he is like a main phase crit giver, whereas this, you know, I feel like this still runs an issue of like, you know, being retired by like Kagero, being locked by Link Joker and stuff like that. So that way the main phase crit giver is a bit safer, but right now the meta is kind of all over the place because there's no event, so people are just playing their favorite decks. So I've tested against Link Joker, for example, you know, and like Kagero I haven't, but you know, it's always a threat because the end is pretty popular. So yeah, that's another one that I'm enjoying. The one weaking, it's become a signature basically, but only one because low shield power, and you know, you don't really ever need one. It's more of a win more card, I would say. And then finally, another card I consider a staple in DP Premium is the Laurel, who is basically our main phase crit giver. So count +1, rest 4 rearguards to give you double your Vanguard's power and give them a crit. So this lets you make a really big Stark, or actually reach your Excalibur power threshold a bit earlier if you need to. So yeah, I'm still not playing Tempest Sphere because I feel like it's not really worth it yet, but maybe at some point it will be worth it. Trigger wise, pretty straightforward. We're running the 4 heals together with the 4 draw PGs, so you know, nothing crazy there. Very typical. I think 8 non-crits is fine because we're running the 4. Well, there's a starter, of course. You know, I'm still running the V-Series starter. I've explained last video why, but of course we're running the 8 crits, 4 of the Insole power crits, and then 4 of the Stride Assist crits. So you can still play more if you want to, but I honestly very often stride with this instead of grade 3s because of how fat their shield power is thanks to Dailiner and Geomagglass. So yeah, so that's the main deck. So now let's take a look at the extra deck. So extra, we've been talking about him a lot. There are some changes actually, mostly stuff that I spoke about in the last video though. So we're running 4 Geomagglass. This is the new stride from Premium Collection 2020. So he has 2 skills. In the Vanguard circle and in the G zone when it's face up, he gives plus 5,000 power and shield to all your grade 3s on Rearguard and Guardian circle. And the Rearguard ones also get intercept. So that's really great because you can call your grade 3s from his second skill, and basically they will get the power and the intercept. And then that also lets you play around Ichitom, which is actually how I won once against Ichitom, was straight up, I intercepted with grade 3s against Latom. And then the second skill is, when he attacks, count +1 and turn a card in your G-Zone face up. The first battle will always be him. And then you look at the top 7 cards of your deck and call 2 of them to your rearguard circles, and he gets critical +1 for each of your grade 3 rearguards. So even if you call them from his skill, he will still get that extra critical, so that can easily one-shot your opponent, or if not one-shot, then get a PG out of their hand. So like I said, this card, I've always thought this is an amazing card. It's just a fantastic stride. It really does a lot, and testing more against the meta, I've really realized that, like, wow, this card is even better than I thought. You know, it really is an amazing card. Then here come the changes. I now have a third Excalibur in here. I don't know where my third, like, you know, the reprint one went with the full art, but, you know, I have one regular GR. Excalibur is the stride for the deck, of course. GB3 gets plus 10k for each of your strides, each of your face-up G-Zone, rather. And then his first skill, of course, is once per turn Vanguard Circle. When he attacks, you may count +1 if its power is 40k or greater to get drive +1, and at the end of the battle, if his power is 80k or greater, then you get to restand him. So, and he loses all drive checks, well, 4 drive checks. So if you manage to give him extra drives from the Diearms, then he'll go from like 5 to 1 or from 6 to 2, etc. So very good stride, you know, restander, very powerful, usually kills your opponent very quickly. So very, very important, but I already spoke about him a lot in August. Then this is a new one. I've noticed against some matchups that they leave me with no counterblast, so we need some strides to play when our opponent gives us 0 counterblast, and that is the 2 different Dimaxes. So we have the old Dimax, the final Dimax, and final Dimax DX. So we didn't play final Dimax DX before, but I chose to start playing him now because I realized that when your opponent gives you no counterblast, this is still an amazing play. So his skill is, when he attacks, you flip a G-Unit face up and put all resting rearguards into your soul. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck and call up to the same number of cards as the number of face-up cards in your G-Zone, throwing among them to rearguard circles in order of highest power, and shuffle your deck. And then if you put 4 more cards from your soul into your soul from this cost, then he gets all your units get plus 10k in a crit. So it actually has potential to just KO your opponent, and very often it's easy to actually like do that big skill and just, you know, like call a bunch of stuff, reset your board, put crit on everything. So it's really good. It's a very nice stride option when your opponent gives you no counterblast. When you have counterblast, you generally go for Excalibur over and over again. Of course, your first stride is almost always the Geomagglass, but you know, when you don't have counterblast, he's an amazing option. And I'm still playing the final Dimax old one, not the DX. This one basically gives your Vanguard plus 15k power and gives your front row Dimensional Robo rearguards plus 5k power, as well as plus 1 critical. So he gets 3 crit on the Vanguard circle, so 3 damage if it hits, not counting Force 2, and then 15k on the Vanguard, and then 5k on the rearguards, and 1 crit on them as well. So that way you have a very lethal board, and then, you know, together with stuff like the, whatchamacallit, let's get to the grade 2s quickly, stuff like the Die Dumper, that comes in pretty handy because he's already 20k on his own, and then this will be, what, 25 with an 8k boost, that's 33, so it's magic numbers. So it works out pretty nicely, and I like these 2 strides for that reason. You don't really need more than 1 of this, so that's why I feel like you have space for the final Dimax. So I definitely like this lineup for when we're starved of counterblast, and usually it won't last than 1 or 2 turns. Last more than, rather. We have Stark, of course. Stark is great. You can double his power with the Laurel and give an extra crit. His skill is, when you stride him, count +2, gets drive -2, but he attacks 3 times and he doesn't rest for when he attacks. So he attacks like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. But yeah, very good. You can double his power and give an extra crit. So he attacks for 3 crit with a Force 2, 3 times with like 50+ k power, so it's very, very cool. Definitely, well, 60+ actually. So very, very nice, good stride, game winner, but of course pretty difficult to stride into because you have to discard the same copy as your Vanguard, so keep that in mind. And then our G-Guard lineup has not changed, it's literally the same. So we have the 1 Geo5, the 1 Atlantis Dolphin, the 1 Dismal, the 1 Zeal, and the Excalibur. So I'm still debating maybe changing up some stuff, but I've been liking it so far. It mostly comes in handy. Everything has a purpose in this G-Zone lineup, so I do like it quite a lot, and so I haven't really had a big reason to change up some of the things in this list. Not running Sea-Breeze, of course, because we can ride up very safely in this deck and, you know, just kind of one-shot our opponents with Dailiner, which, you know, Sea-Breeze cannot do, so that's also pretty nice. But yeah, on that note, that is basically it for this updated premium deck list for Dimensional Robos. Again, if you want more in-depth knowledge as well as other tech cards to compare with, I recommend you check out my deck list from August that I first uploaded after Premium Collection came out. It is also a pretty good list. But yeah, hopefully this gives you some insights on what you can do with the new cards of, you know, Silverdust Blaze and put them into your Premium DP deck. And yeah, have some fun with it. It's definitely a lot of fun, still a lot of fun to be using this deck. And as I'm talking and put the train card on the camera, a train just passed by in my neighborhood, so that's pretty good timing. But on that note, that's gonna be it for me today, guys. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.